Welcome. We are excited to share the latest research and statistics on the effectiveness of community cat programs. Country Humane transforms lives by providing exceptional animal care and adoption services, supporting and strengthening the bond between pets and people, and advocating for the well-being of all animals. My name is Shani Campbell, Community Cat Program Manager for Country Humane. I am also a certified feline training and behavior specialist. Flagstaff and Coconino County is home to thousands of free-roaming, unowned community cats. Cat feeding surveys indicate that there are likely to be at least 100 community cats for every 1,000 human residents. Community cat programs were developed with a clear vision of doing what is best for cats. They aim to provide the most compassionate and ethical outcome for all animals in our community. Community cat programs accomplish this by spaying, neutering, vaccinating, and returning healthy community cats to their chosen outdoor homes. Community cats are free-roaming, outdoor cats who have no indication of having an owner. These cats are found all over the world. Community cats can be unsocialized or socialized, young or old, and may or may not have a human caretaker. Here in Coconino County, they live in our urban areas, parks, woods, backyards, and our more rural communities. Most likely you have community cats in your area and you don't even know it. Trap, neuter, return, or TNR, is the only effective method of controlling cat populations by humanely trapping community cats, having them spayed or neutered, and vaccinated against rabies and other common illnesses, and then returning them to their chosen outdoor home to live out their lives. These healthy and thriving cats help balance nature by minimizing the rodent population and will live their lives happily as before, but will not be able to reproduce. Country Humane and other leading animal welfare organizations are creating extensive and effective community cat programs to meet the individual needs of cats while also reducing their population. Sterilized community cats do not breed and keep unsterilized outsiders away. There are no more new kittens, and any new cat that arrives in a managed group is identified and sterilized before they breed. The population eventually stabilizes. This only applies to healthy cats, ones with easily treatable conditions, or who demonstrate they are doing quite well living outdoors. It does not apply to cats who are sick, injured, or recently abandoned or relinquished by their guardians, or found in a location that presented an immediate danger. Kittens under 6 months old will be medically and behaviorally assessed to determine the best outcome for each individual kitten. Shelters were originally created to care for dogs and livestock and do not meet the complex and unique needs of cats. Because of this, shelters are not the best option for many cats, and statistics show this. Cats brought to shelters only have a 2% chance of being reunited with their guardians, and sadly, have a nearly 50% chance of being euthanized in a shelter. Community cats in particular suffer greatly in the shelter environment. Once allowed to freely run miles of their territory, they are now confined to small cages or densely populated indoor spaces. This extreme stress often leads to illness, which then results in dramatically higher rates of death and unnecessary euthanasia. Arizona ranks number 18 on the national list for shelter pet deaths. When shelters implement effective community cat programs, they see intake and euthanasia rates go down. Reuniting lost pets with their guardians is obviously a goal for most shelters. People assume that bringing lost cats to a shelter is the best place, when in reality, multiple studies have now documented that cats are 10 to 50 times more likely to be reunited with their guardians by returning home on their own, or being found in the neighborhood of origin, rather than through a call or visit to a shelter. This reality is reflected in the fact that less than 3% of lost cats brought to U.S. shelters are reunited with their guardians. This low rate reflects common behavior patterns of both cats and guardians. Many people allow their cats outdoor access, and many will not even begin to search for their missing cat within the average stray hold period. So often, a quote-unquote lost cat is simply missing because they were brought by a well-intended Good Samaritan to a shelter. Shelters were never designed for cats and are not species appropriate. Therefore, it's very common for cats to become sick in shelters. One study found that just one change of housing induced herpes virus shedding in 18% of cats. Herpes virus causes feline upper respiratory infection, also known as URI, the most common illness found in cats at shelters. Shelters are inherently stressful for cats, and a cat's level of stress directly correlates with their chance of illness. Even the best shelters are unable to be 100% stress-free. We need to remember that the key to feline upper respiratory infection is about prevention and not treatment. Preventing cats from ever entering a shelter is our best option. Our little feline friends, unlike our canine companions, have DNA that has not changed much for the past 4 million years. The cats we currently keep as pets are still virtually identical to those who have thrived outside for millions of years. According to National Geographic, a study that compared the DNA of cats throughout history shows that no major differences exist between the genetic makeup of wild and domesticated cats. As a result, cats remain perfectly capable of thriving outside. We must realize that cats thrive outdoors literally all over the planet, and every continent except Antarctica. Did you know that North America is the only continent in the world that views keeping cats solely indoors as normal? There are some shelters in Europe who will not adopt a cat to someone who chooses to keep them 100% indoors, as they see that practice as cruel. It wasn't until the invention of kitty litter in 1947 where keeping cats as indoor pets was first considered. Keeping cats indoors became even more popular in the 1970s when shelters began advocating for cats to be kept inside to try and curb overpopulation, which did not work because they did not focus on sterilizing the thousands of cats who lived outside. All the statistics and facts show that we must challenge current ways of thinking and create innovative solutions to help save the lives of cats in our communities and country. Community cat programs assess the individual needs for every single community cat that enters our care, and we provide the most beneficial outcome for each cat. Every cat brought to our shelter is fully examined by our veterinarian so we can determine their pathway based on age, health, body condition, and important information gained from the cat's finder. Research shows that the best option for healthy community cats is to spay, neuter, and vaccinate them and quickly return them to their outdoor homes. Most community cats are just not suited for indoor life, confinement in a shelter, or home, even if for a short period of time, and it can be very detrimental and stressful, not only to their quality of life, but their health. Community cats who are returned to their outdoor homes have demonstrated that they are doing quite well living a healthy outside life. For these cats, there is no proven benefit from removing them from where they are most happy and living successfully. Spaying and neutering will also reduce problem behaviors like spraying, fighting, yowling, and other disturbances. It also prevents additional unsterilized cats from moving into the territory and therefore reduces overall population. Once spayed, neutered, and vaccinated, community cats tend to gain weight and live healthier lives. They are less likely to develop certain kinds of cancers, and females will no longer have to deal with numerous pregnancies, which can be very stressful with high kitten mortality rates. Males are also less likely to fight other males, which can lessen the chance for injuries and infections. Just one round of vaccines have considerable health benefits for cats and the community. These vaccines against common diseases not only protect the individual cat, but also help lower the risk of infectious diseases among outdoor cat communities, as well as any owned cat who may live an indoor-outdoor lifestyle. For community cats, any amount of time spent inside an animal shelter, even one as diligent and extensive as Country Humane, can lead to mental stress and suffering. Diseases like upper respiratory infection, feline panleukopenia, FIP, ringworm, etc. leads to higher rates of death and euthanasia. Further, Canadian Veterinary Journal published a study showing that the biggest risk for cats developing upper respiratory infection, or URI, was time spent inside a shelter. This study also showed that the risk of developing URI was significantly greater for stray cats versus owner-surrendered cats. The likelihood of stray cats developing URI was 17% greater than owner-surrendered cats. Even if a community cat is very social and outgoing, they just do not adjust well to living in a shelter like other animals may. Because of this, traditional sheltering models have failed these cats and have not provided the best outcomes or opportunities for success. In a large urban shelter in the northeastern United States, 531 individual kittens, 701 litters, and 2,203 adult cats were observed for signs of URI during their stays at a shelter over a 50-week period. The results showed approximately 1/3 exhibit signs of URI. Increasing their length of stay in the shelter increased their risk of URI, Within 2 weeks, the risk of developing URI increased to 84%. Approximately 1/3, or 31.4% of the observed individual kittens, and 2/3, or 61.8% of the observed adult cats were euthanized because of URI in the shelter. Socialized community cats are returned to their outdoor homes because behavior should not be a factor for returning community cats. Instead, we focus on their medical condition and how well they are thriving in their outdoor homes. Community cats are unnecessarily put at risk for extreme stress and exposure to disease when brought to shelters. Many experience behavioral issues even if the time at the shelter is short. Many social community cats have dedicated caregivers who love and spend time with them. Though these caregivers differ in the traditional sense of ownership, they provide these cats with food, water, shelter, human interaction, and affection. How social a cat is outdoors is not an indicator of how they will react to a life inside a shelter or a home. For the well-being of cats, as cats have lifelong bonds with each other even outside, spaying, neutering, and vaccinating healthy community cats and returning them to their human and feline family and their chosen outdoor home is the best outcome for everyone. A true stray cat is a cat who once had guardians and was abandoned. These cats would have some sign of ownership like a microchip, collar, tags, etc., or someone who could verify they were abandoned. These cats would not be considered community cats or processed through the community cat program. We scan every single cat that comes into our care for microchips, and if they do have one, they would be kept at the shelter for the usual stray hold while we try to locate their guardians. If we are unable to reunite them with their family, we would then determine their live outcome pathway out of the shelter. So let's talk further about how lost cats find their way home. Most people assume that bringing a lost cat into a shelter is the best way to reunite that cat with their guardians. But again, studies show less than 3% of lost cats who enter shelters are ever reunited with their guardians. In fact, the majority of cats return home on their own if left in the neighborhood they know. In other words, cats are better off being left in the neighborhood they know versus being brought to a shelter. Unfortunately, lower income people and neighborhoods are routinely targeted and have their cats stolen and brought to shelters under the guise of being a lost cat. This practice of taking outdoor cats to shelters disproportionately impacts lower income families because of barriers of transportation, language, income, or the basic lack of awareness and knowledge of the cultural practice of bringing cats to shelters. There are much more equitable and effective methods to reunite cats with their guardians without bringing them to a shelter. Running these cats through community cat programs and returning them back to their neighborhood can close the loop on sterilization and vaccination for cats already adopted from another source, while also reuniting them with the families and neighborhoods they know and love. 1 in 6 people in the United States live in poverty, and 1 in 5 people in America speak a language other than English at home. Most pets in disadvantaged communities were not adopted from a shelter. In fact, more than 90% of people in underserved communities have never even been inside a shelter. Cultural norms and expectations, as well as access to services, can vary based on numerous circumstances. The reality is, cats can have a variety of guardians and homes. Removing, relocating, or worse, killing community cats is highly ineffective and dangerous. These cats choose their territory based on the resources available to them, like food, water, shelter. Data shows simply removing, killing, or relocating community cats does not solve the issue of cat overpopulation, because new cats will always fill those empty spaces since the resources are still available. Further, there just isn't enough space anywhere to house the hundreds of thousands of community cats in our country and beyond. Relocation is also not a viable or humane option. It's vital that cats know their territory and environment, are cognizant of possible threats, and know the resources in their area. We also need to remember that community cats have human and feline family and friends who they love. When we take a community cat from their outdoor home, we are breaking up families and bonds. So from an ecosystem perspective, the impact of removal will be the same regardless of whether cats are killed, relocated, or adopted. There has been a tendency to assume that removal to animal shelters is a more effective method for management of free-roaming cats compared to TNR. This likely reflects the belief that removing a cat leads to one less cat in the environment, while sterilizing and returning a cat clearly does not reduce population by one. However, this simplistic view fails to take into account what happens when density is reduced and immigration or breeding by remaining individuals is not prevented. Removing community cats destabilizes the population. It has been well documented in many litter-bearing mammals that removal will lead to rapid repopulation. The increased breeding, birthing, and translocation of animals documented in response to lower population density has the potential to increase disease transmission opportunities and risk. Kittens are more susceptible to contracting and shedding several diseases and have much higher rates of mortality than adults. For instance, mortality rate for kittens born to community cats can be as high as 75%, while the mortality rate for adult community cats has been estimated to be as low as 10%. So if a shelter's goal is to preserve the welfare of cats, removing them is triggering an increased birth rate and may lead to an increase of more kittens suffering and dying. This rapid repopulation is called the vacuum effect. This study was done in the forests of southern Tasmania. They had 2 open sites where they trapped and killed feral cats, and 2 other sites where they did not trap and kill any cats during a 13-month period. Surprisingly, the population of feral cats increased at the kill sites by a range of 75 to 211% during the killing period, whereas the population stayed the same at the non-kill sites. This study provides evidence that the removal or killing of feral cats may not only be ineffective, but has the potential to increase the impact of feral cats in open populations. This suggests that the practice of removing cats and bringing them into shelters may not only be ineffective, but it may actually be increasing harm to the cats that shelters were supposed to protect. By letting go of these ineffective removal programs, many shelters are able to free up resources to invest in other shelter programs that are more effective. It allows shelters to help the animals who actually need them, caring for sick and injured animals, protecting animal victims of cruelty and neglect, rehoming pets whose guardians can no longer care for them, and being a safe place for animals in danger or in distress, and of course during natural disasters and emergencies. The limitations and potential repercussions of removing community cats by shelters and others has led to a growing number of recommendations against this practice, which is reflected in the 2021 position statement from the National Animal Care and Control Association, which states, "It is the position of the NACA that indiscriminate pickup or admission of healthy, free-roaming cats, regardless of temperament for any purpose other than TNR/SNR, fails to serve commonly held goals of community, animal management, and protection programs, and as such is a misuse of time and public funds and should be avoided." One of the benefits of a community cat program is it aims to lower the population of community cats, which will benefit wildlife. Spaying, neutering, and returning community cats to their outdoor homes is the only proven method at reducing the size of cat groups. We must remember that the number one threat to wildlife today are humans, and that cats can benefit birds by preying on rodents who eat bird eggs. There is also data that suggests sterilized cats see a reduction of hunting behaviors. Therefore, there is no real benefit for wildlife with the removal of community cats. Cats are often scapegoated, and contrary to many opinions in the conservation world that cats are a global threat to biodiversity, the actual scientific consensus is that cats can, in certain contexts, have suppressive population level effects on some other species. This is something that is true for all predators, native or not. Therefore, cats should not be labeled as a general threat without mentioning important factors of ecological context, situational factors, clear definition of harms, and evidence thereof. As this graph shows, domestic cats are a threat to a number of wild species, but the number one threat is rats. Cat predation may create a net benefit for birds in the presence of invasive rodents. These rodents are present throughout North America, and they play a significant role in the predation of eggs and nestlings, and this nest predation is the primary cause of nest failure among birds. Here are some significant cases where eradication of cats was miscalculated. In Golden Gate Park, cats were eradicated because the grouse weren't reproducing at the same rate. But then they realized it was actually the landscapers who had removed the grass, which was the preferred nesting shrubbery for the grouse. On Isla Isabel Island, cats were eradicated because of a supposed threat to nesting birds. But then the rats became the threat once the cats were gone. So they then eradicated the rats, but then the snakes began preying on the ground nesting birds they were originally trying to protect from the cats. On Marion Island, the largest cat eradication took place, with 3,400 cats killed to protect seabirds. But since all the cats were killed, now the mice have become the problem. On Macquarie Island, all cats were eradicated, which caused the rabbit population to spike dramatically, which then devastated local vegetation and threatened the food source for many species. But what does the science say? Science shows that the main cause of dwindling wildlife populations are from habitat loss due to human development, climate change impacting the environment and migration patterns, choices in architectural and landscaping have a negative impact on wildlife, animal agriculture, deforestation, and resource extraction. In 2021, in our state of Arizona alone, about 8,000 cats were killed in shelters. With 11 shelters not reporting their 2021 data, the number of cats killed is certainly much higher. We must look past our own nearby communities and realize that all cats deserve a life of freedom, happiness, and a chance to not only survive a shelter, but to live their best lives. Not one single shelter worker goes into this job wanting to euthanize healthy animals. So not only do we need to think about these cats that are being killed, we need to think about the humans that are tasked at taking their lives. Shelter workers are grossly underpaid and they often suffer from compassion fatigue. And because of the work that they do, 1 in 6 workers have contemplated suicide, according to a study through the National Association of State Public Health Veterinarians, Auburn University, and the CDC. Compassion fatigue is defined as emotional exhaustion caused by the stress of caring for traumatized or suffering animals or people. It is also known as secondary traumatic stress disorder. The symptoms are similar to PTSD. And as with PTSD, compassion fatigue can lead to depression and thoughts of suicide. In fact, animal rescue workers have a suicide rate of 5.3 in 1 million workers. That's the highest suicide rate among American workers and a rate shared only by firefighters and police officers, according to a recent study by the American Journal of Preventive Medicine. Let's take a closer look at the numbers in Arizona. This data is not to villainize these shelters. It is to showcase the reality of the plight of cats in our country and to drive home the importance of community cat programs and how life-saving they are. Because in most U.S. shelters, more than half of the total intake of cats are considered stray, typically defined as an animal not given up by a guardian or part of a large seizure. In other words, community cats. If shelters adopt a community cat program, they can be a shining example for other shelters so they can begin to save the lives of these cats. Or at the very least, have room to transfer in cats that would otherwise be killed in these shelters. Because if we TNR every community cat, or otherwise known as a stray cat, we would have space and funds to help the cats that actually need us. Arizona Humane Society in Phoenix, Arizona euthanized 2,871 cats in 2021, making their save rate 68% for cats. Casa Grande Animal Care euthanized 249 cats in 2021, which made their save rate 73% for cats. The City of Douglas Animal Shelter euthanized 494 cats in 2021 with a save rate of 14%. The Humane Society of Yuma, Arizona euthanized 665 cats in 2021 with a save rate of 75%. Santa Cruz County Animal Care and Control in Nogales, Arizona euthanized 156 cats in 2021 with a save rate of 49%. Bullhead City Animal Shelter euthanized 605 cats and dogs in 2021 with a save rate of 56%. This map showcases just some of the lowest save rates for cats in most of our states. With thousands of cats being killed and save rates as low as just 2%, we desperately need to do better for cats in our country. This map shows the total number of animals killed in each state, but we need to realize that only about 80% of shelters in the United States release their data, so these numbers are just an estimate. The actual numbers would unfortunately be much higher. The red states have the highest number of animals killed, the orange states have the second highest rates, and yellow states have the third highest rates. On average, daily care for a cat in a shelter, not including medical procedures, treatments, microchipping, etc., costs around $12 a day. High Country Humane's average length of stay for cats is around 30 days, which equals about $360 per cat. Cats who have behavior challenges are by far the most expensive and have the longest length of stay. Community cats in particular will most likely experience behavioral and medical issues related to stress, which of course will make their total cost more substantial. With the high likelihood of cats getting sick in a shelter, the cost continues to rise as well as the detrimental effects to the cat. One shelter study showed that cats with the longest length of stay, about 130 to 160 days, had a median cost of care that was well over $1,800. While spaying, neutering, and microchipping a community cat costs only about $100, but the cat avoids the stress and illness that often comes with numerous days spent inside a shelter. With so much death and sadness in the shelter world, let's talk about the successes of community cat programs at saving the lives of thousands of cats in our country. San Jose Animal Care and Services were one of the first shelters to adopt a community cat program, and when they did, they brought their shelter intake of cats down by 29% after 4 years. The Fairfax County Animal Shelter in Virginia saw a 58% decrease in the number of bottle-fed kittens arriving at the shelter after only 1 year. At the University of Florida, the number of community cats on campus declined by 66% during an 11-year study. Additionally, no new kittens were born after the first 4 years. In Rome, Italy, similar efforts saw community cat group sizes decrease between 16 and 32% over a 10-year period. At Texas A&M University, 123 cats were neutered in the first year of their program, and no new litters of kittens were produced the following year. A 23-year study of a targeted program to trap, spay, neuter, and return cats outdoors in the Ocean Reef community of Key Largo, Florida, showed a 55% decline in the free roaming cat population. Now let's take a closer look at a couple of these shelter studies. This study was on the effect of shelter cat intakes and euthanasia from a shelter neuter return program of 10,080 cats from March 2010 to June 2014 in San Jose, California. Euthanasia went down by 75%. Euthanasia due to upper respiratory infection went down by 99%. Cats picked up dead was down 20%, and intake of cats and kittens went down 29%. The impact of an integrated program of return to field and targeted trap neuter return on feline intake and euthanasia from 2007 to 2010 at the Albuquerque Animal Welfare Department in Albuquerque, New Mexico. 11,749 cats were sterilized and returned to their outdoor homes. Euthanasia went down by 84%, cats picked up dead went down 24%, and their intake of cats went down by 38%. Study on the effect of high-impact targeted trap, neuter, return, and adoption of community cats on cat intake to a shelter. A total of 2,366 cats were TNR'd over a 2-year period in Florida at the Alachua County Animal Services. They saw shelter cat impoundment decrease by 66%. 79% of the cats adopted out of the program were kittens. Only 11 of the 2,366 cats had to be euthanized. Shelter euthanasia and intake drastically decreased. What was even more surprising was that shelter dog intake also decreased by 36%. They believe it was because of the community education and outreach around sterilizing animals and reducing not only populations, but also reducing animal suffering. High Country Humane's 2022 live release rate was 96.65%. With the rising number of stray and abandoned dogs this year, coupled with noticeably lower adoption rates, community cat programs continue to allow us to save the lives of animals who actually need us. With all the current science and statistics we now know, we desperately need to pivot how we currently shelter and manage cats in our communities. We need to change our old way of thinking and always do what is best for each individual cat. Human understanding of cat behavior and their very complex and unique needs is far behind what we know of our canine companions. Cats are still very much wild at heart, and we need to respect their wildness, because all cats deserve better. They deserve to live a life that is most appropriate for them. They deserve to be respected, they deserve freedom, and they most definitely need us to change what we have been doing for far too long. We need to move past our own emotions and biases regarding cats and look at what the science shows us, because all cats deserve better. We are always available to answer any questions or concerns you may have. All research, statistics, and data have been cited for this presentation. Thank you.